All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of That Fitness Couple podcast, where we talk about lifting weights, eating meat, and the many ways that you can get yourself into outstanding shape.
Let's go.
We are Mike and Corey Beth Lepowski. We are the co-founders of PHYSIQUE, a boutique fitness studio franchise, and proponents of a high-protein diet along with heavy lifting. Corey Beth, we recently had a group coaching call that we did that proved to be pretty eye-opening for a lot of people, and we've gotten some great feedback with it. So I think we're going to bring what we did there to today's episode.
Well, I'm just going to say, if you are looking to dial in your nutrition goals, you're welcome in advance for this episode, because it's one of those things where, like, you don't know what you don't know. And when I think back to how I used to eat, I didn't know what I didn't know. And when Mike started sharing tidbits with me, I'm like, wait, what? That doesn't work, or that combination of food is not a good combination. We're also living in a country that is so hyper-focused on calories. Everyone always wants to talk about, well, this is how many calories. And I'm like, but how many nutrients, right? Like, if we actually had a conversation about nutrients, I don't think we'd be struggling with obesity. So that's neither here nor there, but I think it's important to kind of preface this conversation with it. Now, this client in particular, she is in her 50s. We do have permission to share all of her details. I'm not going to share her name though, but we combed through her journal, and from a bird's eye view, this woman eats healthy. She eats clean, and she's frustrated as heck that her weight has really not been moving a whole lot. Since starting with us, she did lose 2 pounds in the first 4 weeks, which I personally think is great, having made no adjustments to her nutrition. So strength training, she experienced 0.5 pound drop per week, which is pretty cool. But now our next step with her is to help dial in her nutrition. But we did present this to the group, and the group was very excited about the little tweaks we made that are going to make a really big difference for her.
I always think that this is a useful exercise, because no matter where you find yourself currently, you're probably going to take something away that you didn't think about or could implement yourself in order to make better improvements. So this is one of my favorite things to do, is when we're on these calls and we get to personally comb through somebody's situation, because we all, even though generally speaking, I mean, we're all pretty much the same, people do have some unique set of circumstances. In one case, one person could be eating like this client and seeing outstanding results. In her case, she feels like she's moving along slower than she'd like to. And it's always cool to go in there and try to figure out where we can make just a little bit tweak and make a big difference.
Yeah. So we'll start with what her current breakfast looked like. And that was, she would have 2 eggs and 1 egg white. She would also eat half of an avocado. And the first thing that you pointed out when we started looking at this was like, okay, like, she's eating like eggs and avocado for breakfast. By anyone's standards, that's a pretty clean, whole food breakfast. But the first thing was, what are we not logging? And I think when we're looking at something like this, like, you're not just cooking eggs unless you're eating them hard boiled, which I know she's not. What are we cooking them in? So different options would be butter, avocado oil, olive oil, and all of those contain some type of nutrient.
Yeah, I think that too many times people overlook the little things. If you're not that you always have to be hyper focused on this. I mean, let's just be very clear. This client is looking for fat loss, so she's willing to do the little extra work to track what she's doing so that we can get a full view of what she's been eating. But I think too often in these scenarios, people do leave out the little things and not realizing that it actually adds up. And in fact, that was the conversation prior to this one we had with another client who she did her own homework on what she was eating and realized that she was letting all these little things in that added up to a tremendous amount. We'll stay off of that topic with it. It's definitely another great conversation for another time. But in this situation, yeah, I mean, you're not cooking your eggs on a pan that hasn't had something put on it.
Yeah.
And so we do need to add that into it. But when we looked at her breakfast, as well as many of her other meals, I mean, from that 10,000 foot view, if we're just looking at the foods that she's eating, she's doing a pretty darn good job.
Yeah, so I think we got to break this into the nutrients, because that's where people are going to be like, wait a second. So 2 eggs, 1 egg white, protein, avocado, and then the butter. We assume that she's cooking in some type of butter. We came up with the fact that this breakfast is 14 grams of protein, 28 grams of fat, and 6 grams of carbs. Not a big deal, but what do you think she's deficient in?
Protein. I mean, any of our listeners here definitely know. And As soon as you read those numbers, they knew right off the bat it's protein, because if we are, as a female, especially shooting for a minimum of 100 grams of protein per day, and you're only starting off your day with 14 grams, then you're really setting yourself up for a difficult remainder of the day. And there's another part to this, which we don't mention very often, but I think is important. I sat down and had a conversation with Dr. Donna Lehman, who explained how, especially as we get older, our protein needs not only increase, but our protein needs increase in the morning. And that's because we are waking up in a catabolic state and more likely to burn through muscle tissue or put our amino acids at risk unless we're getting protein in. And the amount of protein needed by somebody upon waking is usually somewhere in the range of 30 grams of protein. He had found in his research that 30 grams was the amount needed to stimulate muscle protein synthesis. So if you, as an individual who is 50 plus, that's really important that you're starting your day off with the proper amount of protein because of all the other cascading effects.
100%. I like biggest take home for everyone listening right now is your first meal, whether it's breakfast or it's lunch or it's brunch or it's at 8 o'clock, 11 o'clock, or 5 in the morning, protein. Like it should be protein. And it's funny, that fact about 30 grams of protein, I have a hard time eating one beef stick, which is only like 8 grams of protein. If I'm eating them, I make sure I have three because you're not going to have these crazy blood sugar fluctuations. And one of the biggest signs that you'll know you're not eating enough protein is you'll notice blood sugar drops, energy drops, or you may notice that you're hungry shortly thereafter eating. So we made a really very simple tweak to this client's meal. And we said, hey, listen, instead of 2 eggs and 1 egg white, let's have 4 eggs. Not a big deal, right? That's like plus 2 yolks and a white. That's easy. We are going to account for the half a tablespoon of butter that you're going to cook this in. That's really all we did. We said she could add bacon or sausage if we wanted to, but just the eggs, butter, we ended up at 34 grams of protein, 38 grams of fat, and 0 carbs. So I just want to, for comparison reference, because I know you don't have a screen here where you can actually watch this, just listening. We went from 14 grams of protein to 34 grams of protein. That puts her in a good spot.
I mean, it's a very simple fix. Took out the avocado, said
Yes.
you could have it, but let's just not have it now in this meal, because we wanted to try to beef up her protein a little bit more, but we still accounted for it pretty much that same amount of fat in the bacon,
Yeah.
plus the 2 extra yolks.
And then we brought up her fat intake. So we went from 28 grams of fat up to 38 grams of fat. I mean, and again, for people that are like, oh my gosh, that's so much fat, calorically, it's 90 grams more. That's all it is. People will not think twice about eating a 100-calorie snack pack, but 10 extra grams of fat, that is it's the same thing, right? It's different nutrients, but calorically, it's the same. And so we feel like this is going to put her in a much better hunger state where she's not going to feel hungry after eating this shortly, and is going to help to stimulate her metabolism.
It's going to stimulate her metabolism, and again, most importantly, muscle protein synthesis.
Hey, we hope you're enjoying our show and finding it valuable. If you could do us a quick favor, it would mean the world to us. Please take a moment to rate and review our podcast on your favorite platform. Your reviews help us reach more people and share our message. Plus, we'd love to hear your feedback. Thanks for being awesome and supporting us. Now, back to the show.
Love it. All right, let's go to our next couple meals that she laid out. Then she would go for yogurt, berries, chia seeds.
Well, I mean, with this,
Healthy.
again, from a bird's eye view, doesn't look so bad, but we have to come back to what does this add up to? And if you're one of those people who you're eating the Chobani container, you're maybe getting like 16 grams of protein in that meal. In this case, you're getting your 16, and then you're just adding in chia seeds, which is just fat. And again, you're getting them from seeds, which is not necessarily like a great source, or again, one that's not benefiting us from a health perspective. People have promoted it for such a long time as like in that superfood category, but we know that it's really not such. So she's beefing up her fat and she's adding carbohydrates. Once again, we just find ourselves a little upside down in the sense that carb intake now is creeping up a little bit higher, which is not a bad thing. However, her protein intake is still on the low side, and she's increasing fat. So now you have increasing fat along with increasing carbohydrates, which we know those two things in combination are usually not a good recipe for fat loss.
Well, and especially for a postmenopausal woman. I mean, let's just be clear about who we're talking about too. I think back to the interview we did with Lori Lerman about her year-long journey with us of losing the 30 plus pounds that she came to lose and never feeling like she was deprived, never eating low calorically or nutrient wise. She had great skin, great hair, great nails. Like, that's how you should look and feel when you're on this journey. And that, again, is our hope for this client as well. So actually, from the chat box in our coaching call, the women were suggesting, she should have tuna, like tuna salad. She could make that. A 5-ounce can of tuna is 34 grams of protein off the bat. We even said chicken salad or egg salad, but I found out one of the most devastating things about chicken, egg, shrimp, and all the salads. Usually delis and definitely store-bought brands, because I went and investigated, add breadcrumbs. And so I just want to caution you, because I was deceived up until last week about store-bought chicken salad. And right in there in the ingredients, it literally says either breadcrumbs, bread product, or it said some other like tricky way of saying it, but you look and it's wheat. So, someone who was like, oh my gosh, on my Instagram stories, Corey Beth, I'm gluten-free. Like I never would have thought to ask, is this chicken salad gluten-free? Like, I didn't think they put bread in to beef it up. So we started making our own at home, and that was delicious.
Always far better anyway.
It always is. Made with love. So they said that would be a great swap. I mean, if you wanted to stick with the vanilla yogurt, an easy way that we can beef that up with protein is just by putting a scoop of protein powder into it.
Or
and
just
then
even eating more of it.
There you
I mean,
go.
if you were to double the amount of yogurt, or in this case, Greek yogurt that you're having, and again, we always promote Greek. We're not promoting regular plain yogurt here for the reason that that is not very high in protein. Greek yogurt does tend to be very high in protein. To double that amount, now she's going to get in the range of 32 grams of protein. So again, we're staying on track here with having that minimum consumption of 30 grams per meal. Her carbohydrates will come up a little bit, but she also doesn't need the chia seeds in there. I mean, again, they really don't serve any purpose whatsoever. Yeah. And if she still wanted to add something else in, like a protein powder as a mix, then you're going to beef it up even more. So I think that these were nice, easy, simple fixes using foods that she's already eating.
So good. Would you like to go to the protein powder conversation or the mixed nut conversation next? Because those were her next 2 meals.
You choose.
All right, we'll go nuts. Nuts are easy to bang out. We totally have been lied to about nuts being like such a good, healthy snack. And what I mean by being lied to is nuts tend to be very high in fat, and also because of the salt, very addictive. I think probably to the crunch. I definitely have fallen victim to like too many pistachios, too many almonds, walnuts, pecans, and macadamia nuts. Those are my favorites.
In addition to that, you have the added problem of high in oxalates, and also tend to be gut disruptors.
Yeah. I mean, that was pistachios, actually cashews as well for me. And most people don't realize this, because you're not just sitting down and eating a plate of nuts. You're usually eating it in combination with other things. And then people are like, oh, my joints hurt, or my stomach's upset. I mean, a lot of it can be attributed to that. So again, I've cut those out of my eating. But when we looked at her half a cup of mixed nuts, we're looking at, again, 7 grams of protein, 19 grams of fat, and 7 grams of carbs. I think most people wouldn't realize that there's carbs in nuts.
There's carbs in nuts, but I think all the other things are the bigger problem here. I mean, to me, the carbohydrates in the nuts is the least of the problem. The bigger one is, what is this contributing to your overall gut health, how it might be affecting you in other ways, and then we're still deficient in protein at the end of the day.
There's a theme here.
Yes.
Okay. And then we got to the protein powder at the end of the day. So she'd have some type of a protein shake. And again, this was one of many days. Other days had turkey chili, which we can chat about. But her protein powder, what we pulled from that is it was a plant-based protein powder, which again, those tend to be moderate in protein to low in protein and definitely higher in carbs. And then she would also add frozen fruit into the mix. So the brand that she was using was Orgain. 1 scoop of it was 20 grams of protein, 4 grams of fat, and 16 grams of carbs, plus a half a cup of frozen fruit.
Yeah, I mean, even though we're not able to show it here, again, anybody who's just processing this right now and hearing us call out some of these numbers with regards to carbohydrates and fats, I mean, what you start to see evolve in front of you is this situation where, okay, she's still on the lower carb side of things, but maybe not as low as she should be or wants to be relative to how much fat she's taking in. And then what just adds to the fuel to the fire is the fact that her protein is not reaching the minimums that she should be at.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think at the end of the day, what we concluded was she had, you could do math, Mike, 14 plus 7 plus 4, what's that, 11, and 14 is 25, plus 20. Oh my gosh. That's not a lot of protein at all.
No.
Okay. So our suggestion was a whey protein. That's WHEY, whey. And a single serving of generally whey protein would be about 34 grams of protein, 6 grams of fat, and 7 grams of carbs.
Yeah, I mean, depending upon what you're using, again, you just want to shoot for those minimums, right?
Yeah.
So in many ways, it almost doesn't matter which brand of whey protein, or even in this case, even if she chose for whatever reason to use a plant-based protein, you could probably find one that is lower in carbohydrates than the one that she's consuming. It's doing that calculation and saying, oh, if this one scoop is 20 grams, then I should be doing 1.5 scoops at minimum at each meal, just to ensure that you're hitting that lower threshold.
Well, I think that that's such an underrated hack that most people don't realize. They're like, wait, I can have a scoop and a half. I'm like, you can have 2 scoops if you want to. I mean, you can make your shake as thick as you want it to be, and it's a really easy way to beef it up.
Well, the serving size is simply so that you have an idea of how much is in that particular serving size. Our job then is to do whatever calculations we need to make sure that we're getting the amount that's right for us. So that serving size does not mean that it's the right serving for you. It's just how much you're getting in that specific amount. I mean, I know that sounds so juvenile and fundamental, but yet I know that so many people, when we start making suggestions as to start eating these types of foods, increase your protein, what they do is they go to like the single serving size of that food, not thinking that you actually have to eat a certain amount of that food in order to put yourself exactly where your body needs you to be.
Well, so in conclusion, we determined that this client was eating about 45 to 60, sometimes upwards of 70 grams of protein a day. What would you say is a minimum for women? I know you already said it, but I love when you repeat it.
Yeah, about 100 grams per day is ideal for most women. Depending upon, your size, another calculation you could use is anywhere from 0.7 to 1 gram per pound of body weight. So if you find yourself carrying a little extra body fat, or maybe even leaning towards the obese end of the spectrum, then you would calculate the amount on that 0.7. If you're on the leaner side or close to your goals, or you're looking to increase muscle tissue, then you would use that 1 gram. But anything in that range for most people is going to be an appropriate amount.
No, I love that. And I think even for people that may be deficient in protein, aim for the lower end of that range and then work yourself up to it. So again, for a 150-pound woman, multiplying that times 0.7, that's 105 grams of protein. And you want to know what's crazy? We took her 34 grams in the revamped egg breakfast of 4 eggs, the revamped tuna salad lunch, and then the protein powder swap. And that actually, ironically enough, gave us 34 grams of protein at each meal, which calculated out to 106 grams of protein on the day. So simple though, like we didn't change a whole lot of things.
Well, I hope that's what some people listening or watching gain from this. If you feel like you are, quote, eating healthy, that you make good food choices, you eat whole foods, you eat proteins, oftentimes it's not about you changing the foods that you're eating. That's why this is not as difficult as people think it is. You don't have to change your foods. You just need to change the ratio of the foods that you're eating. And if we go back through everything that she had, even if we were to put chia seeds back in, I don't know why you would. If you did, you can go down the list of other things that maybe she was only having because she felt she either needed it or it helped to bolster that meal, like make her feel more full. Even if you put that stuff in, you could put it in amounts that still allow you to hit the proper ratios at the end of the day. And what did you sacrifice? Nothing.
Yeah. Oh, so good. So we're so excited to present this plan back to this client. We did get some really positive feedback in our studios just about like, wow, we didn't realize what a simple tweak a lot of this stuff was. I mean, literally adding an egg and a half to a breakfast is going to make a difference in helping her hit her goals and eat more protein. I mean, that should be the biggest take home here, right?
Always is.
Let's go.